Welcome back, everybody, to another round of 11 Bravo. We're all about the combat vets. I'm Rick Seaman, and I'll be joined today with a guest. His name is Eric Schrumpf. Eric was with the Marines in Iraq, having returned recently, and Eric has been diagnosed with PTSD. We're going to speak with him when we come back. See you in a minute. We are back, 11 Bravo, and with me today is Eric Schrumpf. Eric, I'd like to thank you for being on the show. I'd also like to thank you for your service to your country, and most importantly, welcome home.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Good. So, Marines. When did you join?
August 1997.
97. Okay, and how long were you in?
Somewhere between 6 and 7 years.
Somewhere between 6 and 7 years.
It's a blur.
And you ended up in Iraq.
I did eventually.
And
Yep.
you probably were expecting that.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah.
Did you want to go?
Yeah, actually, I was medically disqualified from going to Iraq just due to some soft tissue injuries and things I'd received beforehand. So I saw to it that I was shot up with enough cortisone and painkillers to go and be effective over there. So
Good, good. So you get there, and it's wartime. It's a real deal.
the real deal.
It's a real deal. What'd you see?
Well, like everybody else, when you first get there, it's you're still kind of gearing up, and everybody's
Right.
still, gathering all the equipment. Gosh, I mean, we probably sat there for I don't even know 2 months, a month and a half, 2 months thereabouts before we ever crossed the line. But what I did see was I saw the size and breadth of the Marine Corps for the first time in the 6 years that I had been in. You've trained for all these years, and but it's typically small unit tactics, and you never really see the whole big show kind of unfolding before your eyes.
Right.
It's a pretty amazing thing. I mean, that's the only thing I can
It's
say.
awesome.
I had a unique job, I guess you'd say. We were, myself and one other Marine, were selected to be Dragon Eye pilots, which is this very small, man-portable, unmanned aerial vehicle that's utilized for forward reconnaissance purposes.
Yeah.
Over the hilltop type reconnaissance
Right.
operations. So that was our job, to go and fly the little remote control airplane and spot the bad guys. Essentially, they're about $50,000 a system, and
Wow.
we managed to crash both of them within the first day and a half, I'd say, of Iraq. And so at that point, we just said, "Let's get our rifles and let's
Okay.
go to it."
We're back on the ground.
There we go. Let's go do what we're.
So
we're
you
good
are
at.
you are an infantry MOS then, right?
Yeah, I was actually an 0331 machine gunner, but
Yeah.
I'm a designated marksman, so I'm a long distance shooter.
Right.
I carried an M16A4. Which is the newest variation of the M16. I had a nice optic on it. It's a heavy barrel M16, so you can get a little more accuracy out of it.
Yeah, the M16's still around. So, needless to say, once you got rolling there, you guys saw a lot of combat.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if a lot is a good word to use as
Yeah.
compared to a lot of the conflicts out there, but we saw our share.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, making contact every other 2-3 days,
Sure.
that's
It's a wake
enough.
up. It's a wake up. Keeps you on
That's
your
a wake
toes.
up. Yeah. We're going to take a break, and we will be back with Eric Schrumpf. We are back, 11 Bravo, once again with Eric Schrumpf. So, Eric, how long were you deployed in Iraq?
Approximately 5 months.
5 months.
Yeah. So actually, literally only probably 3 months actually in the combat zone.
3 months in the combat zone, which can still be a long time.
Sure.
Yeah. During those 3 months, especially when you got into, contact with the enemy, started seeing some bad stuff, how many times a day did you think about the day you were going to go home?
It was actually kind of funny. We ran a pool when we first got there of how long. We knew we were going to roll up the Iraqis pretty quick. It wasn't the greatest challenge on the block, we'll put it that way.
Right.
So we knew it would be pretty quick. I mean, if it took us more than 3 weeks to make it to Baghdad, there were a hell of a lot more problems than we planned on. So.
And you were, in fact, one of the units moving in on Baghdad.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that was what year? That was in
2003.
2003.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the initial push. I mean,
Right.
we literally crossed the line. I was with 2nd Tank Battalion at the time, in support of 2nd Tank Battalion. At the time, we crossed on the northernmost boundary of the Marines' periphery.
Right.
When we crossed in, so we had 3 M1 Abrams tanks,
Right.
and 3 Amtraks,
Yeah.
and it was go time. So
There you go. There you go. So you guys had this pool going.
yeah, so essentially we had a pool and we were placing bets over, how long it was going to take us and when we were going to get out of there, essentially. So I think I had a bottle of Captain Morgan's up for stake, and it was quite funny. Before we ever crossed the line, there was a little dog and pony show that they had. The commandant came out, and whoever all of his little stragglers are, and the sergeant major of the Marine Corps all came out for one little big pat on the back before the big show, and I was selected. I was a good Marine, right? So they selected me to go and sit in and be graced in the presence of the commandant type thing. And so I went and sat down, and everybody asked their little BS questions that everybody always asks the commandant, and basically tell him he's got nice shiny boots or whatever sucking up that people do to officers.
Sure.
I was never that guy, so I actually involved him in on the bet. Sir, I got a bottle of Captain Morgan on it. When do you say we're getting out of here?
There we go.
And his response was he had a trip scheduled for the Bahamas, so he planned on making it pretty quick.
Ooh. Okay. But the day finally came. You're out of there.
Sure.
You're out of there, and when it was all over, did it feel like it was going to be easy? Just we did our job. We're getting out of here. We're going back.
Yeah, I mean,
done deal.
Yeah, it was very, very simple. It was interesting going out of phase 1 after the collapse or whatever you'd want to call it of their military and the destruction of those elements of it that chose to stand up and fight us. And the Fedayeen, I think we all underestimated the extent to which the Fedayeen would fight us in certain areas or certain pockets, and clearly mistakes were made in that regard. The planning and the preparation to, we left a lot of ammunition in our rear, enemy ammunition in our rear, which has proven to be an enormous mistake. But you go to war with the army that you got to close in on the city, so that's what we did.
Right.
So it went very quickly, very, very well. Obviously, we had sporadic incidents of combat, some heavier than not, and it's funny. My war is going to be vastly different than a guy's war that was 20 clicks to my left.
Sure,
everybody's war is going to be a different thing. So it might have been light one day for me, and that guy was in the battle for his life. So it's kind of always hard to speak about how difficult the fight was, because in my corner it was, there were moments where it was stressful, but there were other moments where, and I think the overwhelming majority of the moments were more boredom than anything, just the push north and the monotony of, contact left, get out, eliminate the opposition, get back in, and
But you're still in the field.
Oh, absolutely.
You're living like...
That's miserable. Yeah.
You're living like a dog.
Yeah, you're living like... Oh, the dogs live better.
Yeah. I got to wonder if people out there in civilian life, when they think of the combat vet, they think, oh, gee, that guy, he fought and, he saw all this and he saw all that. But I know what they don't think of is every day that you're not engaged...
Sure.
You are living like a dog.
Just misery, digging a hole.
Exactly.
Move from one hole to the next hole.
Sleeping in a mud hole or a sand dune. The
monotony of cleaning your
food,
rifle.
How about the food? I mean,
it's just MREs.
Yeah, it's gourmet, And
and the flies off of the cadavers, the flies off the corpses.
Yeah,
that's really pleasant when you're eating peanut butter and jelly on your little MRE package cracker, and there's 100 flies that just came off the dead guy next to you.
I know. We used to say in Vietnam, we used to say, if there were no bullets flying here, to stick some kid here for a year, that's the worst thing you could do. That's a punishment worse than anything.
Absolutely.
Just to be here. My God, yeah. Well, I can relate to that.
It's pretty nasty.
Yeah. So, Eric, as you came here, you made no bones about the fact that you have been diagnosed with PTSD.
Sure.
So you did see some tough combat, obviously. You saw friends go down, you saw friends bleed, and we know what that's like. When you got out, you came back from deployment. Did you feel at any point during that transition that maybe you needed help, or how did PTSD
manifest,
creep into your life?
Sure. Well, I noticed I came back a little bit before my unit did, just for some family issues, emergency type issues with my spouse. So I beat my unit back by about 2 weeks. So I actually had and for good or bad, I had a short period of time where I had nothing but time to focus on myself and kind of recapture my relationship with my wife and my life essentially.
You were married the whole time
Yeah,
you were deployed.
I was married my entire deployment. So, but I noticed. I noticed there had been changes. I was a different guy than the guy that had gone overseas 5 months ago. But that's the case with any deployment, even a non-combat deployment. People change. The stresses of a deployment can get you down. But I started to notice there were a couple of incidents in particular that I noticed. I'm not an emotional guy, and there were some moments where I really was kind of emotional, and I started drinking quite heavily, and rage, anger issues really started to present themselves. My relationship with my wife really degraded to a point where in a matter of weeks it was, we're going to separate. I had really it was a bad turn for me.
So we could say that a grunt coming back from the field from Iraq comes home to a wife, he's immediately under her microscope.
Absolutely. And that's a blessing.
That can be an advantage.
Well, that can be an advantage because there's eyes on you.
There's eyes on you.
As opposed to coming back with a group of guys and there's no eyes on you.
There's no eyes on you, exactly. We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with Eric Schrumpf, and we're going to talk some more. 11 Bravo. 11 Bravo, we are back. Eric Schrumpf. So, Eric, we're still talking about PTSD. When you got out of Iraq, off deployment, how did society react to you? I mean, your close friends or just anybody you were involved with?
Sure.
Were there anything? How did they react to you?
Well, my friends and family were obviously happy to have me back in one piece. But the way society, I guess, reacted to me was a little bit different. And perhaps my situation was unique, but when I landed, I flew into LAX on a commercial flight. And when I landed, it was very clear I was in the military. I had all my gear. I wasn't in uniform, but I had all my filthy gear. And I was met with a war protester, at the terminal, at the baggage claim, that told me I was a baby killer. And it was like going back in time to Vietnam type issue.
You believe that?
It was just incident after incident after incident like that kind of made me a little angry, and the way that guys would, or the way that people would react to me. I had one woman in an art gallery up in Napa told me, she said, "You guys are all," and her husband was actually a Green Beret, or she was the spouse of a Green Beret who taught at the Linguistics Institute up in NorCal. And she told me that we were all a bunch of murderers and that we had destroyed all of Baghdad. We had leveled the entire city and killed hundreds of thousands of people, which was very funny to me. I mean, I actually laughed when she said that. I said, "Well, where did you get your news?" And she said, "I saw it on the internet. I saw it on the television."
Sure.
That's what I saw. And it's quite funny because it's the absolute opposite of that. We did everything in our power to preserve life and not take life. On a daily basis, oftentimes at jeopardy to our own lives.
Exactly.
Did we not take life?
Exactly.
And oftentimes Marines were wounded or were killed as a result of their goodness. So that's something that's definitely not stressed in the media. So my PTSD, I think a lot of my anger issues and problems that I had initially upon returning was the way the media was dealing with the conflict. Even today, I can't watch the news. It enrages me to such a point where I'm ready to hurl the television out of the building. Because they twist it and they manipulate it to their own ends. And in my opinion, what those ends are anti-American ends, and they want us to fail in the war.
Sure. So, what kind of treatment have you been working with then?
Well, when I first returned, it was actually kind of a struggle for me to get treatment when I first returned. The way the military works, you can't just go to a mental health clinic and say, "I need help, I'm having issues." You have to get a consult from your local provider. In my case, it was a regimental aid station. So I went to the regimental aid station and talked to the medical officer there and said, "Look, sir, I need to go talk to..."
And you're still in the military?
I'm still in the military, yeah.
Still in the military.
And it was a different medical officer, no idea who this guy was, some young guy. And I said, "Sir, I need to get a consult for mental health." And he said, "Why?" I said, "I just need a consult for mental health." He says, "We need to justify it to me." I said, "Well, I don't need to justify jack shit to you." Here's the rage coming out, right? I said, "I don't need to justify jack shit to you. What I need for you to do is give me a consult." And it got physical. I mean, it literally almost became a physical altercation At which point I got to consult, and I was fortunate. I'm one of the fortunate few because I was being pushed by my wife in particular to go get help. And I recognize if there's this many people that are looking at me kind of cross-eyed, that I need something was wrong. I need to get something done. So I was one of the fortunate ones that actually was. I had the backing and I had the willpower, to really go out there and seek treatment, regardless of what the command said or command thought or what anybody else, what their opinions were. So I really, I was very proactive in getting treatment. And again, I was fortunate in that I got treatment from a very qualified individual at the Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton. And he prescribed medications for me, a serotonin booster. Essentially post-traumatic stress disorder destroys your mind's ability to, or your body's ability to produce serotonin, which is the chemical that results in happiness. So eventually, essentially, it eliminates your ability to be happy, and it leads to depression and all the other manifestations of it down the road. So I was placed on, I was prescribed medication. It obviously had an effect, but post-traumatic stress disorder is something I deal with on a daily basis. Today, I still have flashbacks, and there's still certain sights, sounds, smells that will kind of put me in a different space, and I still have issues with rage. My wife and I still have our issues, like all marriages do, but ours is a little bit different. So,
but you recognize it. She recognized it. I would think probably your wife and you are kind of like a team effort now.
Absolutely.
It's nobody's hiding anything from anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. That's good. Eric, what would you say to these troops coming back today? What may they need to look out for? Well, if you don't have someone like yourself who you were under the microscope, friends, family, somebody might not have that. What could you suggest they may look out for?
Well, the first thing I would tell them to do is I would tell them what not to do.
Okay.
And the first thing I would tell them what not to do is don't watch the news. Don't listen to the quote-unquote conventional wisdom or what the people are saying, what the quote-unquote people, what the news is telling them. We in America love you, we appreciate you, we understand your sacrifice, and we honor that on a daily basis. And we're proud of every single thing that you've done and the sacrifices that you and your peers have made. Number one, above and beyond all things. So disregard the BS that you're hearing, and don't let it get you down, essentially. The things that I would tell you to probably look out for, number one, steer clear of the alcohol. I know so many Marines at this point, and veterans in general, from all wars at this point, that they've decided to self-medicate through the use of alcohol or other drugs, whatever those might be, and it's destroyed their lives.
Yeah.
So I would definitely watch out for that, and feel free and open to go and seek help, whether it's at the Naval Hospital or the base that you reside at, the medical clinic that's available there, or go outside of that and go to a private practitioner and get help. I think where the hatred comes, or where my hatred comes from, where my anger stems from, is from the way in which the media presents the sacrifices that we have made. And the way they twist those sacrifices into something meaningless, into a war that cannot be won, or into a war that should never have been fought in the first place. The last thing I need to hear is how my good friends have lost limbs and lives for something that was never a just cause in the first place. At the end of the day, veterans have to take care of veterans, and the politicians and the media can all keep their mouths shut.
Thank you for that. We will take another very short break, and we will return. This is 11 Bravo. Don't go away. We are back, and Eric, it's been a nice little interview I've had with you here. I appreciate you coming in. And I've spoken to a number of young soldiers, Marines also, just like Eric here, who've come back from deployment, from combat. And I got to tell you, I'm always just, so impressed with the dedication and professionalism that I read from these guys. And I feel like being able to talk to them like I've been able to is a privilege. To me, it's a true privilege. And I suggest that any American whoever has the opportunity to speak to some of these young folks should, in fact, do that. I also suggest that every American watching this program right now should just stand up and salute these folks. Eric, thank you again.
Thank you for your time.
He's 11 Bravo. See you next time.